question from this side.
If you were to get the founding fathers here and ask them what they would do to amend the Constitution, I think their retort would be, what have you done to our Constitution? You have torn up major parts of it and thrown them away. One is that the founding fathers did not require 60% of senators to vote on anything in the Senate, any bill, any appointment, anything. That has changed. It isn't the filibuster, because there hasn't been a filibuster for at least 10 years. It's the threat of the filibuster and the way the Senate works its rules. But as it is now, for all intents and purposes, the Constitution has been amended so that it is 60% for anything to happen in the Senate. The founding fathers only had requirements of extraordinary majorities in treaties and overriding presidential vetoes and so on. Another way in which the Constitution has been severely damaged is the founding fathers, of course, insisted that there be a Bill of Rights for individual rights attached to the Constitution immediately after it was ratified. Those were individual rights. Corporations are not individuals. Need I say more?
Could the University of Connecticut government professor identify himself?
I'm David Repass, retired professor from the University of Connecticut. And by the way, if you want to read more about the filibuster, I did have an op-ed piece in the New York Times a year ago about the filibuster. If that had been listened to by anybody, we would have had all kinds of legislation by now, but nobody was listening. Anyway, and finally, the third thing that has happened to the Constitution is the founding fathers had all of the administration of elections, including federal elections, handled by states. It's only times, places, and matters that the Congress had anything to do with, but basically the running of elections was left to the states. We had indeed an electoral college. The states were very primary in the whole election system. When the state of Florida in 2000 got in trouble administering their elections, the Supreme Court had no constitutional provision in which to intervene, but of course they did. There are other examples, but the point is that the Constitution, through various political elites in Washington, has been amended.
I agree with all that. Maybe we could, I guess I agree with all that. Certainly the filibuster is on the face of it, seems to me to be unconstitutional for the reasons you mentioned. Maybe you'd like to defend it, Rick?
Well, the houses of Congress are allowed to have their own rules and procedures, and that would be the constitutional defense.
But do you believe that? Are you personally willing to defend the filibuster?
Well, look, it's a complicated question because we see the way the Senate works. We also see the way the House works. And the House is we sort of loosely think of the House as the more democratic body because the terms are shorter and everybody's up all at once every 2 years and so on. But we see the fact that the Senate, the House rather, is the less democratic body. That clever speakers of the House are able to run it, with a very firm hand. And I remember after Newt Gingrich, we just learned that he would be Speaker of the House. This was the gap between the November election in '94 and '95 when he actually took the gavel and he came on a national recruit. So he agreed to come, and he had every reason to beg off, because suddenly he's going to be Mr. Speaker. But he came along, and I sat next to him at one dinner, and in he said to me, we're telling everybody the model is canon, but it's really Reed. He's referring to two speakers of the House around the turn of the 19th to 20th century, and Reed's nickname was Czar Reed. So that was my window into how he envisaged running the business of the House. What the filibuster does in the Senate is it sets up a barrier, a roadblock to that. And the Senate, has many others in this whole sort of elaborate, and to anyone who's not a senator, comical senatorial courtesy. But that's part of the roadblock thing that they all. I remember the first time I took the little train that runs, and the senators were all going off to some vote, and I thought, these are the stars of Hollywood in Washington. I was very conscious of the fact that all those senators thought they were gods from Olympus. And if you think you're a god from Olympus, you look like one because you behave like one, and you carry yourself like one. Even if you're ugly, which, politics does not pull for beauty, Hollywood does. So a lot of people in the Senate are ugly, but they just look like the gods. The gods were catching that little train to go to their vote. And that's sort of one of the barriers that the Senate has.
Well, the filibuster is one of the things that makes them more like gods, because it empowers, it made a hold, a so-called hold on a nomination is an emanation of the filibuster. And that's one of the little tin god annoyances that the Senate affronts to good government that the Senate offers. It seems to me that given the framers said we need 2/3 for a treaty, and we need this, we need 2/3 to convict an impeachment, and they also said that a majority of the Senate will be a quorum to do business. What they were saying was that if 51 senators happen to be present, then 26 would be enough to pass legislation.
What would it take to get the Senate to change its rules? Would it be a nuclear option?
And suppose the majority of the Senate were to adopt a rule saying that to pass a bill would require the unanimous consent of all senators. Suppose that rule were voted upon at the beginning of the session. 51 senators voted for that. So let's say somehow that that the Mirandists had got hold of the Senate and wanted to paralyze government completely, and they would pose that rule.
Well,
would that be okay?
Would there be? I assume there would be a court challenge in that case, and don't you think the court would be willing to hear that case?
Maybe, although the court is notoriously, I don't know.
Has there been a filibuster challenge in the court?
If there has, I don't know of any cases where courts have interfered with what the Senate and House consider their internal business. I don't know of any cases where that's happened.
But surely it must have.
From what our professor friend from the University of Connecticut said when he was referring to Gore v. Bush, one of the results of the unworkability or the rustiness or the gummed upness of the difficulty of action of our system has been to empower the Supreme Court. I mean, the Supreme Court has had to step in where the political / democratic branches of government fail, and that's why just as the original Constitution was unable to solve the main domestic problem of the United States, the problem of slavery, the post-Reconstruction, since it wasn't rebuilt, since after that failure of the Civil War, the machine was not tinkered with. Both sides.
The Civil War amendments.
But there are substantive amendments. They didn't change the structure. They didn't change the power relations. They were like the Bill of Rights. They were really in addition to that part of the Constitution rather than to the structural part of the Constitution. And as a result, the machine could not solve the problem of racial segregation. This really elementary thing. This is not a very complicated violation of the values of democracy that you have separate inferior school systems for people on the basis of their skin color. That doesn't seem like a tough call.